Hey Northlands, my name's David Murray, and me and my family have been going to Northlands for a couple years now. Today, I want to share with you a testimony about God's promises and His provisions during a deployment that I'm on right now. Currently deployed to the Middle East, which means I've been gone from my family and friends and home for about 6 months. And if you know me, you know that throughout my whole life, I've had a really hard time with being homesick, being away from home. Even as a kid, just extended slumber parties or going to camp, it really incapacitated me. I had a hard time just sort of living out the life that was in front of me when I was been away from home. That carried over to when I was older, leaving to go to college, leaving a boot camp. Just had a really hard time because all I could do was focus on survival. All I could think about was me, which means any mission that God had me on, I had a hard time living that out. So as I thought about this deployment, I knew that Satan was going to try to use it to keep me distracted. But fortunately, God had other plans. I think He viewed this deployment as a way to destroy a stronghold that had been in my life for as long as I can remember. So in fact, early on, God gave me this verse, Jeremiah 17:7-8, that says, "But blessed are those who trust in the Lord, have made the Lord their hope and confidence. They are like trees planted along a riverbank with roots that reach deep into the water." Such trees are not bothered by the heat or worried by long months of drought. Their leaves stay green and they never stop producing fruit. I really love that last part. I feel like that was God's promise for me, is that I'd be a tree that's not bothered by heat or drought, that could stay green and really produce fruit on this deployment. So there's a couple ways that I feel like God met me in that promise and provided. The first is just in my daily quiet time. I feel like it's been a really rich time where I could just spend time with God every day. Another way has been just sort of this weapon of worship and gratitude. I feel like God's taught me that when things are hard, I can just worship and show gratitude towards what He's done, and that's really a weapon against what Satan is trying to do. And so that's been really cool. The third is through a lot of you, really, just in circumstances. God's put people in our lives that have loved on my wife, loved on my kids, sent me notes, sent me presents, covered me in prayer. It's been really cool. And also just circumstantially, early on, I had to do a bunch of pre-deployment training, and I wasn't sure if I was going to get to come home in between that and actually leaving for deployment. It was really cool. I just really prayed about it and journaled about it, and God came through, and I got to spend 2 extra weeks at home that I didn't think I would get to. So that was amazing. So the promise was that I could thrive on this deployment. I could keep producing fruit, and God's really provided in that. I think sometimes the hardest thing is the gap in between the promise and the provision. Early on, I read this verse, Lamentations 3, says, and it kind of summarized how I felt, how I feel certain days. He has made me chew on gravel. He has rolled me in the dust. Peace has been stripped away, and I'd forgotten what prosperity is. I cry out, my splendor is gone. Everything I'd hoped for from the Lord is lost. That's really how I did feel. But fortunately, the verse goes on, or the passage goes on, verse 21, "Yet I still dare to hope when I remember this. The faithful love of the Lord never ends. His mercies never cease. Great is His faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning." So I don't know where you are, somewhere in between promise and provision, but my encouragement to you is to reflect back and remember that great is His faithfulness. His mercies begin afresh each morning. Thank you. Hopefully, I'll see you all in a couple of short weeks.